She only wanted to disappear, just long enough to keep her children safe. But when she left them by the lake and vanished into the shadows, she didn't know the man sipping coffee on the bench nearby was a millionaire with a broken past, and that their lives were about to crash into each other in the most unexpected, life-altering way. The crisp morning air drifted over Central Park like a soft whisper, rustling leaves and carrying the scent of fresh coffee. Jason Whitmore sat on a bench near the edge of the lake, his tailored coat buttoned neatly, a steaming paper cup cradled between his hands. To the world, he was the picture of composure. Billionaire CEO, media mogul, man of influence. But inside, he was quiet. Not empty, not broken, just still. He came here sometimes when the weight of power felt too heavy. The park reminded him of when things were simpler. Before wealth, before titles, before he lost his wife. He didn't notice the woman at first. She moved fast, almost too fast to register. A young woman in worn jeans, a hoodie 2 sizes too big, hair tied in a messy braid. She was clutching 2 small children. Twins, he realized. Maybe 3 or 4 years old. A boy and a girl. She knelt beside them near the water's edge, speaking in hushed tones. Jason's eyes were drawn not just by their presence, but by something different. Urgency. Fear. The woman's hands trembled as she cupped the children's faces. Her voice was barely audible, but Jason caught something. "You'll be safe now. Stay together. Don't cry." Then in one swift, painful motion, she kissed them each on the forehead, stood, turned, and ran. Jason sat upright. She didn't just walk away. She fled and through the trees, past the jogging path, vanishing without looking back. The twins remained frozen where she left them, holding hands, eyes wide with confusion. They didn't scream. They didn't run. They just waited like they were told. Jason was on his feet before he even realized it. Coffee forgotten, coat flaring in the breeze, he approached cautiously. The girl looked up first. Her cheeks were streaked with silent tears. The boy held her hand tighter. "Hey there," Jason said softly, crouching down. "Are you all right? Where's your mom?" The boy blinked slowly and whispered, "She said to stay. Someone good would come." Jason felt something sharp twist in his chest. "How long have you been here?" "We just came," the girl said. She was scared. Jason glanced around. There was no one else. No mother, no Chase. Just 2 small children left behind, like fallen leaves on the shore of the lake. He pulled out his phone to call the police, but paused, staring at the kids again. He could turn them in, let the system handle it. But something inside him refused. "I'm Jason," he said quietly, "and I think you're very brave." The little girl leaned into her brother, and Jason slowly extended his hand. "Let's get you warm, okay?" They hesitated, then reached out together. As they walked toward his car, Jason didn't yet know their names, or the storm that had brought them here. But he felt it. Something bigger than coincidence. A story was beginning, and for the first time in years, he wasn't the man observing from the sidelines. He was stepping into it. Jason drove through the early morning traffic with both hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than usual. In the back seat, the twins sat quietly, buckled into the leather seats of his luxury SUV. He had wrapped his wool scarf around the girl's small shoulders and given the boy his gloves. They hadn't said much, only glanced around with wide, uncertain eyes. It was too early, too cold, and too strange for children to make sense of what had just happened. Jason's penthouse wasn't designed for children. It was sleek, spacious, decorated in monochrome with glass and steel surfaces, more like a showpiece than a home. But when they stepped through the doors, he immediately saw it through their eyes. Too quiet, too polished, too unfamiliar. "Would you like something to eat?" he asked gently as he helped them out of their jackets. The girl nodded slowly. The boy stayed close to her, his fingers curled around a small plastic dinosaur. Jason guided them to the kitchen. "I have cereal. Or toast?" "Toast," the boy whispered. Jason didn't usually make his own breakfast, but that morning he toasted bread, spread it with butter, and served it with warm milk. The children sat at the counter, legs dangling, eating slowly, carefully. He didn't press them. He didn't ask questions. Not yet. Once they were settled, he stepped into his office and picked up the phone. "Elliot," he said when his assistant answered, "cancel my meetings for the day. Something came up. There was silence. Are you all right, Mr. Whitmore? I will be. Just reschedule everything. And send someone to the penthouse with children's clothes. 2 sets, maybe 3. Boy and girl. Age 4. Understood. He hung up and stared at the reflection in the dark screen of his computer. He had always kept a distance from emotion. Strategy was cleaner. Numbers, controllable. But these 2 children had cracked something open the moment he looked into their eyes. He returned to the kitchen and sat across from them. Can I know your names? He asked softly. The boy looked up. I'm Ben, the girl added. I'm Lily. Hi, Ben. Hi, Lily. Do you know your mom's name? Lily nodded. Lena. Do you know where she went? They both shook their heads. She said to stay with each other, that someone kind would find us. Jason felt his throat tighten again. You're safe now, okay? You can stay here until we figure everything out. Ben whispered, Is she coming back? Jason hesitated. He didn't want to lie. But he didn't want to make a promise he couldn't keep. We're going to try to find her, he said gently. I promise. Lily blinked back tears and looked down at her toast. Later, after the children had changed into clean clothes brought by the assistant, they curled up together on the oversized couch and fell asleep beneath a soft gray throw blanket. Jason stood nearby, unsure what to do with himself. He felt like a guest in his own home, like the air had shifted. He picked up his phone again. I need a private investigator, he told Elliot. Discreet and fast. May I ask what for? Jason looked at the sleeping children. Because someone left 2 kids in my care this morning, and I need to know why. Outside, the wind picked up, but inside, for the first time in a long time, something human was unfolding. Messy, unplanned, and completely real. The next morning began with soft footsteps and quiet voices. Jason woke earlier than usual, not to check stock reports or field emails from Europe, but to the sound of little feet pattering across the hardwood floor. When he stepped into the living room, he found Ben and Lily curled up on the rug, flipping through a picture book he didn't even know he owned. Their cheeks were flushed with sleep, but they looked peaceful, less afraid than yesterday. Did you sleep okay? He asked. Lily nodded, her ponytail lopsided. Your couch is really soft. Jason smiled slightly. I'm glad. He made them breakfast again, this time scrambled eggs and toast. And they ate a little more confidently, asking shy questions between bites. Do you live alone? Ben asked. Yes, Jason said honestly. Don't you get lonely? Jason paused. Sometimes, he admitted, but not this morning. After breakfast, he brought them to the guest room and helped them pick out new clothes from the shopping bags his assistant had dropped off overnight. Lily found a purple sweater with sparkles that made her giggle. Ben clung to a tiny red hoodie that fit him perfectly. Jason watched them, realizing how long it had been since he'd seen joy that pure. But beneath the softness of the morning, he hadn't forgotten the weight of what needed to be done. By 10 a.m., his private investigator arrived. A sharp, no-nonsense woman named Marla Reese. She had helped Jason discreetly uncover internal fraud once, and now she sat across from him in the study, flipping through notes as he explained what happened in the park. You're saying she abandoned them? She asked. Not exactly, Jason replied. She said something to them before she left, told them they'd be safe. Reese leaned forward. That doesn't sound like abandonment. Sounds like protection. That's what I thought, Jason said. Can you find her? I'll need names, photos. Anything else? Jason nodded. Her name is Lena. That's all I have. But the kids are registered under Lena Collins at the ER. She brought them in a few weeks ago. Fever, I think. Reese scribbled quickly. I'll start with hospital records. Pull CCTV from the park. See if she's been flagged anywhere. If someone was after her, we'll find them too. As Reese left, Jason lingered in the hallway for a moment, deep in thought. It had all happened so fast. In less than 24 hours, 2 children had entered his life and disrupted the sterile calm he'd grown used to. But it didn't feel like chaos. It felt like purpose. Later that afternoon, he took Ben and Lily for a walk in the building's private garden. They chased each other between hedges and tried to catch leaves as they fell. Jason found himself laughing, genuinely laughing, as Lily handed him a crushed dandelion for being nice. When they returned, a text from Reese awaited him. Confirmed, Lena Collins, no criminal record. But her brother, Patrick Green, has a long history. Kidnapping, assault. He's out on parole. She may be running from him. Jason stared at the message, feeling a cold knot settle in his stomach. He looked toward the living room, where Ben and Lily sat on the floor drawing crayon houses. Lena hadn't left her children. She had protected them from something dark, something dangerous. And now Jason knew exactly what he had to do next. That evening, the penthouse felt different. Jason stood by the floor-to-ceiling window in his living room, watching the city flicker like a galaxy laid flat beneath him. Behind him, Ben and Lily were curled on the sofa, watching a soft cartoon with the volume low, their heads resting against each other. Despite the warmth of the room, Jason felt a chill in his chest. The name Patrick Green echoed in his mind like a warning bell. He picked up his phone and called Marla Reese. "Did you find anything else?" he asked without greeting. "Yes," she said, voice low. "I traced Lena's last known location to a women's shelter in Queens. She stayed there for 3 nights. Staff say she was anxious, jumpy. She used a fake name, but they confirmed her identity when I showed a photo. She left 2 days ago. Alone." Jason felt his jaw tighten. "Why would she leave the kids in the park?" "She was being followed," Reese replied. "One of the shelter employees remembers a man asking about her, matching Patrick Green's description. He'd been lingering nearby. Lena must have realized she couldn't outrun him with the twins, so she made a choice." Jason closed his eyes for a moment. She thought she was saving them. Exactly. She found a public place, a safe one. She saw you, Jason. She trusted a stranger over her own family. Jason turned to glance at the children, who were now fast asleep on the couch, a blanket tucked under their chins. His voice softened. "Keep looking. She's out there. She needs help." "I'll find her," Reese said. After ending the call, Jason sat at the edge of the couch, watching their small chests rise and fall. He gently pushed Lily's curls away from her forehead. The innocence of their sleep made him ache. He thought about his own childhood. Empty mansions, absent parents, the quiet wealth that couldn't fill the silence. He had promised himself long ago never to raise children in that kind of world. But here they were, not his by blood, but placed in his life by fate. Or maybe something deeper. The next morning, Jason took them to the park again. Not the same park, a smaller, quieter one. They fed ducks, tossed pebbles into a pond, and shared a bag of apple slices. When Jason looked at them, the way Ben watched over Lily, the way she called him Benny like a nickname, he didn't see 2 abandoned children. He saw a bond built on love and survival. While they played, Jason's phone buzzed. It was a new message from Reese. "Got her. She's in a motel on the edge of the city. She's alone, and she looks like she hasn't slept in days." He inhaled sharply. "Does she know her kids are safe?" "No. She thinks she'll never see them again." Jason crouched beside Ben and Lily, both now sitting in the grass, building a fort out of sticks and fallen leaves. "How would you feel if we went to see your mom?" Both children froze. Lily's eyes welled with tears immediately. Ben blinked, uncertain. "Really?" he asked, barely above a whisper. Jason nodded. "She didn't leave you. She was protecting you. I think it's time she knows you're okay." That night, as the city dipped into twilight, Jason buckled the twins into the backseat of his car. As he drove through the narrowing streets toward the edge of the city, he didn't know what Lena Collins would say when she saw him, but he knew what he had to say to her. "Thank you. And welcome home." The motel was tucked behind a gas station on the outskirts of the city, its flickering neon sign barely illuminating the cracked parking lot. Jason pulled in slowly, the tires crunching over gravel. The children were quiet in the back seat, their eyes wide with anticipation and uncertainty. He parked near the office but stayed inside the car, looking at the room number Marla had texted him just an hour earlier. Room 207. He turned to face Ben and Lily. "Are you ready to see your mom?" Ben nodded solemnly, clutching his plastic dinosaur again. Lily whispered, "Will she be happy?" Jason smiled gently. "She'll be more than happy. She'll be whole again." He stepped out of the car, walked around to help the twins out, and together they approached the row of rooms. As they reached 207, Jason raised his hand to knock, but paused. Inside, he could hear the faint sounds of pacing footsteps, a chair scraping. He knocked firmly but not loud. It took several seconds before the door opened, just a crack. A thin chain stretched across it, and behind it stood Lena, thinner, more exhausted and paler than he remembered. Her eyes were sunken, her hair pulled into a messy bun, and there was a flicker of fear in her expression as she looked up at the man standing in front of her. "Yes," she said cautiously. Jason didn't speak right away. He simply stepped aside. And then she saw them. Ben stepped forward first. "Mommy?" Lena's breath caught in her throat. She blinked hard as if trying to make sense of the vision in front of her. Lily reached up with both arms and Jason gently let her down. The chain rattled, and then the door slammed shut for a second. A click. When it opened again, Lena dropped to her knees just outside the threshold, arms wide, tears already spilling down her cheeks. "My babies," she gasped, pulling them both into her. They buried themselves in her embrace, clinging tightly, trembling. "I thought I'd lost you," she whispered again and again, kissing the tops of their heads. Jason stepped back to give them space. His throat tightened, his own eyes damp. He had never witnessed love like this. So raw, so desperate, so earned. Finally, Lena looked up at him. How did you find them?" "I didn't," Jason said softly. "They found me. In the park. I was just there. I watched you walk away. I didn't understand at first, but I do now." She stood, still holding the children, her arms shaking. "I didn't want to leave them. I didn't have a choice. My brother Patrick, he was going to take them. He said they'd disappear and no one would know." Jason nodded. "I know. I had someone look into it. He's being watched now. He won't get near them again." Lena's body nearly collapsed from relief. She leaned against the doorway, her children nestled into her shoulders and whispered, "I thought no one would believe me. I thought I'd have to run forever." Jason stepped forward, not invading, just offering steadiness. "You're not running anymore. You're safe now. They're safe. And you don't have to do this alone." For a moment, the air between them was still. Lena looked at him, not just with gratitude, but with 1,000 silent questions. "Why are you helping me? Who are you really? What do you want?" But she didn't ask them. Instead, she said, "I don't even know your name." "Jason Whitmore." Her eyes widened slightly. "The Jason Whitmore? The CEO?" He gave a modest shrug. "I was in the right place at the right time. Or maybe the wrong place made right." Lena let out a shaky laugh, still crying. "You didn't just save them. You saved me." Jason looked at the children. "No, you saved them. I just made sure your sacrifice wasn't in vain." As the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Jason helped carry a few of her things to his car. There wasn't much, just a duffel bag, a few worn books, and a locket she refused to let go of. When they drove back to the city, the twins asleep in the back seat again, Lena sat in the front, silent but calm. For the first time in months, her shoulders weren't clenched, her eyes weren't darting. She was going home. Not just to a place, but to the possibility of a future. And Jason, without realizing it, was no longer a bystander. He was part of that future now. Back at the penthouse, the air felt different, warmer, lived in. Jason opened the door and stepped aside to let Lena and the children enter first. She hesitated in the foyer, eyes wide as she took in the sleek marble floors, the towering windows, and the silence that filled the place. It wasn't the kind of home she ever imagined stepping into, let alone being welcomed into. She looked down at her worn sneakers and then at Jason. "You really live here?" she asked in a whisper, her voice still raw from emotion. "I do," Jason replied softly, "but it hasn't felt like a home in a long time. Until now." Ben and Lily ran toward the couch, familiar now with the layout, climbing up with laughter and relief. Lena watched them for a moment, then quietly followed, removing her shoes as if not to disturb the peace. Jason showed her to the guest room, the same one the twins had stayed in. He offered it without condition. She touched the edge of the neatly made bed, then turned toward him. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," he said. "Just rest. You've done more than enough on your own." That night, while the children slept and the city lights pulsed below, Lena sat in the kitchen with a cup of herbal tea. Jason joined her, setting his phone down on the counter and pouring himself a glass of water. The silence was comfortable, even soothing. "Were you always this kind?" she asked after a long pause. Jason smiled faintly. "No, I used to be a lot colder. Focused, business, work. Nothing outside of my control. Then I lost my wife. Everything after that just felt quiet, distant. Lena looked at him, her face softening. I'm sorry. Me too, he said, taking a sip. But I think maybe I was meant to be in that park. She nodded, her eyes lingering on the way he looked at her. Not with pity, but with understanding. I didn't think anyone would help. I thought if I disappeared, at least they'd be safe. I was wrong, but it was all I had left. You weren't wrong, Jason said. You were brave. You did something most people would never have the strength to do. Tears welled in her eyes again. I thought I failed them. No, you loved them enough to let them go, he said, his voice low. That's not failure. That's sacrifice. They sat in silence, the city humming around them. Eventually, Lena exhaled and stood. I should get some sleep. Jason nodded. Of course. If you need anything, I'll be here. But just before she turned the corner to leave, she paused. Thank you, Jason. He looked up, holding her gaze. You're welcome, Lena. When she disappeared down the hall, Jason sat at the counter for a while longer, staring at the empty teacup she left behind. He felt something shift inside him. It wasn't just about protecting them anymore. It wasn't charity or duty. He wanted to be part of their healing, part of something real. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was just surviving his own life. He felt like he was beginning to live again. The next few days unfolded like a quiet, unexpected dream. The penthouse, once a cold monument to success, began to breathe with life. Laughter echoed in the hallways. Toys appeared in corners. Breakfast became messier but warmer, and nights ended with bedtime stories whispered under blankets. Jason found himself waking earlier, drawn not by alarms or meetings, but by the sound of Lily's giggle or Ben's curious questions about how the coffee machine worked. Lena was slowly relaxing, though the tension in her shoulders hadn't fully left. She was still adjusting, still cautious. She cleaned obsessively, folded every blanket the children used, and never sat for long. Jason noticed, but said nothing. He understood. Trauma had taught her to stay invisible. Survival had taught her not to take up space, but something in her had begun to shift. On the fourth morning, Jason walked into the kitchen to find Lena humming quietly as she made scrambled eggs. Her hair was down, brushing her shoulders. She smiled when she saw him, tired but real. I figured I should make breakfast for once, she said. You've done enough. Jason chuckled. They'll love that. They already requested smiley faces on their toast, she added, rolling her eyes. I'm officially employed as a short-order chef. Full benefits, Jason teased, sitting on a stool. Dental, too. They both laughed. It was small, but it was a beginning. That afternoon, Marla Reese came by to give an update. Jason had warned Lena in advance, and though she was nervous, she agreed to meet her. They sat together in the living room while Ben and Lily napped in the guest room. Your brother has left the city, Marla said. We confirmed he boarded a bus to another state. We've also filed a protective report on your behalf, in case he returns. Lena gripped the cushion beneath her. So, it's really over? For now, Marla said carefully. But if he comes back, we'll be ready, and he won't get near your kids again. Lena nodded slowly, emotion tightening her throat. Thank you. After Marla left, Jason found Lena alone in the hallway, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her shirt. You don't have to be strong every minute, he said gently. She looked at him with a half laugh. I don't know how to be anything else. Maybe, Jason said, but I think you're learning. She nodded, her face flushed, her voice soft. You're changing everything. Jason hesitated, then asked, and do you want everything to change? Lena looked up at him, eyes searching his. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she nodded slowly. I don't know what this is, she said, but I feel safe. I haven't felt that in a long time. Jason stepped closer, just enough that she could feel his presence without pressure. Then let's not rush. Let's just be here, together. That night, after the children were tucked in and the city lights glittered beyond the glass, Jason brought out an old photo album he hadn't touched in years. He and Lena sat at the kitchen table flipping through pages, sharing pieces of their pasts. Hers filled with foster homes and night shifts, his with boardrooms and emptiness. Somewhere between stories, Jason realized he wasn't helping her start over. He was building something new with her, and she wasn't just part of his life now. She was the part that made it feel whole. Spring settled into the city with soft breezes and blooming trees. The once lonely penthouse had transformed completely. Toys were no longer tucked away, but lived in open baskets. Finger paintings clung proudly to the fridge with mismatched magnets. The smell of coffee in the morning, mixed with the sounds of small feet running, giggles bouncing off the marble floors. Jason's world had shifted, not in an explosive, cinematic way, but in a quiet, deeply rooted transformation. It had been 2 months since Lena and the twins entered his life. They hadn't left. On a bright Saturday morning, Jason stood at the window holding a mug of coffee, watching Ben and Lily playing with wooden blocks on the living room rug. Lena stepped beside him, wrapping her arms loosely around herself, her sweatshirt still rumpled from sleep. "They're so happy," she whispered. "They are," he said. "And so are you." She turned her head slightly, smiling. "Yeah, I guess I am. I didn't think I'd ever say that again." Jason set his mug down. "Do you still feel like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop?" She nodded faintly. "Some days more than others, but it's quieter now. The fear, I mean. It's not screaming anymore." Jason took a breath. "You've rebuilt a life from nothing, Lena. That takes more strength than most people will ever understand." She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time since they met, he saw no fear in her eyes, only trust. Later that day, he took them all to the park, the same one where everything had begun. Lena hesitated when they arrived, but he reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Ben ran ahead with Lily, both squealing as they chased bubbles Jason bought from a vendor. Lena stood beside him beneath the shade of a tree, watching them with soft eyes. "I've been thinking about something," Jason said. She turned to him, curious. "I have a house outside the city. Quiet, safe, a yard for the kids. I haven't lived there in years, but I kept it. I thought maybe one day—" Her breath caught slightly. "You're asking us to move in?" "I'm asking if we could build something. Together. I don't want this to be temporary, Lena. I don't want to just be the man who found you in a storm. I want to be the man who stays after it." Tears welled in her eyes. She wasn't the type to cry easily anymore, but this time she didn't hide it. "You already are." Jason gently cupped her cheek, and for the first time she leaned into his hand without hesitation. "I love you, Lena," he said simply. "All of you. Your past, your fight, your babies. You're everything I didn't know I needed." She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "And I love you, Jason. You gave us a home before I even knew what one was supposed to feel like." Across the grass, Lily fell into the grass, laughing while Ben tried to fly a paper airplane. Their laughter was music, pure and whole. And as Lena slipped her hand into Jason's, he knew the chapters behind them were full of pain and survival. But the pages ahead would be filled with peace, healing, and the kind of love that doesn't ask to be earned. It simply stays. As the author of this story, I believe the ending represents a powerful truth often forgotten in our fast-moving world. Healing doesn't always come with grand gestures. It comes with trust, consistency, and the quiet decision to stay. Lena's journey from fear to safety, and Jason's transformation from a solitary figure to a man who opens his heart and his home, show that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. What began as a desperate act of protection ended in something rare and beautiful. A family not born by blood, but by choice. The story closes with hope, not because the pain of the past is erased, but because it's finally being carried together. And to me, that's where the real miracle lies.